everyone! Welcome to the Read Your Knitting podcast. My name is Sarah and I will be your host today and for probably all the other days if I continue doing this. This is a podcast about reading and knitting, mostly knitting because that's what I do mostly, but I love to read. I've always loved to read and I like reading while knitting or listening to audiobooks while knitting and sometimes actually reading while knitting if I can manage it. So here we are. It's my first podcast. I feel a little awkward. So I just need to breathe and we can get into it. Since this is my first podcast, I think I need to go a little bit into who I am and what I'm about, my story. I started knitting when I was in high school. I had crocheted before that. I continued to crochet while I was learning to knit. I mostly crocheted through college because it was what I knew best at the time. And when I was in college, I went to school for music, so it was a good, just something to keep with me and to keep me sane. And once I graduated college for music, I didn't get into the schools that I wanted to, and turns out grad school is very expensive, and I had to move home, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I will tell anyone who goes into music it's worth it. It's a lot of work, and it may not pay off in the end, but you'll get the experience of, it takes a lot of hard work and people value that in the world. They really do. So it took me a couple of years, maybe a year and a half after I graduated to really pick up knitting seriously. I was doing a little bit here and there. You know, I bought myself a set of interchangeable needles. I made a hat and then I put them down. Took a couple months for me to get there, but once I started getting introduced to the Instagram knitting community, the podcasters on YouTube that I was watching, I really fell in love with it. I really do. I love this community. The first pattern I picked up, which was probably a big undertaking, but I did it, was the Starting Point Shawl by Joji Locatelli, and it just really motivated me to learn new stitches and learn new techniques. And I loved it. It was great. So since then, I've been knitting a lot and really non-stop. There's not really a day that goes by. There's a couple days that go by without knitting. I do still have a life and work and everything that goes along with that. But most days, I'm able to sit down for a good couple hours and knit after work, which is how I love it. So that's just a little bit about who I am and where I'm at in the knitting community. I like talking, so I figure podcasting is probably like a good thing for me. But we'll see. So let's just get right into it and start with some finished objects. Now I have a lot of finished objects. Right now I'm wearing my I had to look at it. Yeah, I'm wearing my What the Fade shawl by Andrea Mowry. I knit this last year, and I think what I'm gonna do with all of my FOs that I've finished in the last, I don't know, year and a half or so, I'm probably just gonna wear one every episode to kind of show it off to y'all. So I finished this one last year, so it's not really a recent FO, but I do have two from the last 2 weeks or so in the last 2 weeks. I don't remember when I bound off the first one, but I finished these in the last 2 weeks, so I'm going to go ahead and show them to you. The first one I finished is the Plumpy shawl by Andrea Mowry. Actually, all the shawls I'm showing you today are by Andrea Mowry. I have a problem, but it's not like really a problem. It's just like I'm obsessed with her patterns. So this is the Plumpy shawl by Andrea Mowry. It was a really quick knit. I cast this on New Year's Day. It was my New Year's Day cast on, and I was just obsessed with it from the very beginning. When she posted the first picture on Instagram, I was already going, what weight yarn is that? I need to order some. I want to work on it. I got the yarn in before Christmas, And then I told myself, I'm not going to start this till the new year. I have lots of WIPs that I need to finish before I can cast something new on. So on the first day of the year, that's what I cast on. And I think it's really beautiful. I'm obsessed. The yarn I used is Primrose Yarn Co. The Rose Sport in Morticia is the dark kind of black purpley color right here on the end. And then Silent Film is this kind of gray with still kind of some of those purpley speckles in it. I'm so glad these worked together so well. Because you never know when you order stuff online. You never know if they're really in the same color family. And these two just go together so well. And then my pop of color in this is called Gremlin, also Primrose Yarn Co. And I just think the three of them make a great contrast to each other. These two work together so well. And the kind of bright yellow, it just complements. They just all complement each other so well. So I've really been loving wearing this one a lot. The other finished object that I have for y'all today is also by Andrea Mowry. It's the Hoarfrost shawl, this way. The Hoarfrost shawl that she published maybe sometime last year or the year before that. I've had it in my Ravelry library forever, and I actually started this back probably in October. I cast it on because I had cast on artist. I wanted to cast something on. I mean, this is just KnitPicks yarn, so and a lot of the stuff I work with is KnitPicks yarn. I love KnitPicks. But I didn't have like anything expensive that I was working on, or everything was just too big a project, and I wanted something quick. So starting a shawl always feels really nice till you get about, I don't know, this far into it, like about a third of the way into it, and then the rows start getting really long. So in October, I probably worked on this for like 2 or 3 days, and I got to a point where the rows were long, and it's not really KnitFlicks. It's not really TV knitting, because there is a pattern. This texture is really beautiful, but you do have to kind of pay attention to what you're doing. So it got stuck in project bag WIP on the shelf for a little while, but I picked it back up at the end of December when I said I want to work on more of my WIPs. I think on December 26th I finished a project that I'll show y'all in the future. And I picked this up for a few days till the end of the year. I got into the lace, probably a few repeats of this lace detail, and then it was the first of the month and I wanted to cast on something new, so I cast on the Plumpy. Then when I finished the Plumpy, it only took me 2 or 3 days to finish the rest of this lace. So this project really goes very quickly, and it's an enjoyable knit, and it's fun to wear, and I really like it. It's just so fun. And it's like the only neutral shawl that I have right now. So this one is gonna get as much wear as any of my shawls do in South Texas. This is my first WIP that I'm going to show y'all. This is the Lottie cardigan by Brandy Velten. I haven't worked on it very much. It's kind of been my go-to toss in my bag when I'm like out on the town or whatever. Even if I don't really have a lot of opportunity to knit while I'm out, like at work, I don't really get that much break time. So, but I still like to carry something around in case I go to a doctor's appointment, or I take my lunch at a cafe and I have a few more minutes to kind of knit. So I've been carrying this one around. I'm not even past the first raglan increase section, but it's just very simple. It's all stockinette, and I'm gonna really enjoy this when it's done, if I ever finished it. I started this in October, so it's taking me a while to get through it, but I really haven't touched it that much. I'm the kind of person who likes to have a lot of WIPs going all the time, so that means I cast on a lot of stuff, and stuff gets left behind. But I have been working on this in the last week or so, so I wanted to kind of show you. It's knit on a KnitPicks palette, which you're going to find I use a lot. I use a lot of, because I really think it's a high quality 100% wool non-superwash, and they have it in every color you could think of, so I really enjoy using this base, which is why the other W.I.P I have right now is also knit out of KnitPicks palette, and that is my Woolen Honey. Okay, that's the back. I ended on a row in the middle of a row, but that's fine because it's a sweater in the round. This is my Woolen Honey, and I think this is the Turmeric colorway. I don't remember what the purple was called, but this one's called Turmeric. I really, really love how this is turning out. I had to go down a couple needle sizes to get her gauge on my gauge swatch, and now my gauge is a little bit too small for the pattern, but I tried it on and it fits so beautifully. This yoke, when I split for the seams, for the sleeves, excuse me, yeah, it's just working so beautifully so far, and I'm very happy with my needle size choice, even though it's a little bit smaller than her ease would suggest. I think it's gonna work for me because let's face it, I'm a thicker girl. Sometimes having a ton of positive ease is not a great look. I like my stuff to be a little bit more tailored, not as boxy as some. I like a boxy, but you know, still kind of within the 2 to 3 inches of positive ease. That's pretty much enough for me. So I'm excited about this one. I've been working on this one again since September, probably September or October. I cast it on and I worked through all of the honeycomb pattern, and then once I was done with that, it's just been this garter stitch, which because it's in the round, it's knit around, purl around, knit around, purl around. So it's taking me a while, but I've been getting more into reading, which is what I'll talk about next. And it's just been working really well. I've done probably 2 or 2.5 inches in the last week or so. Since I finished the Hoarfrost shawl, I picked this up, and I've done 2 or 3 inches to the bottom of this, and I think it's gonna keep going pretty quickly as long as I don't start doing a ton of other stuff. On to the next section is reading. Now, I don't have a lot of physical books to show for you because most of my reading these days has been happening on audiobook and even ebook. I find it's really easy to knit and read at the same time if I'm reading an ebook on my iPad, having it propped up, and I can make the text a little bit bigger or smaller if I need it to be, and I can just knit away like I'm watching a TV show. I found that it's pretty similar. I thought it would be different when I first started knitting and reading at the same time, but it's pretty similar to watching a TV show and knitting at the same time, so I'm really happy about that. I guess I'll talk about a few books that I've been reading. I don't have a picture to show you for the first one. I'm not going to look one up because that's too much trouble. Earlier this month, I took a road trip to visit my friend Julie up in College Station, and I decided to turn on an audiobook. I never really heard of it. I bought it on sale at one of the Audible sales, maybe one of the 2-for-1 credit or one of those things, and it's called City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. That might not be how you pronounce her name, but I so loved this book, and it's long. It's like a 23-hour audiobook, but I started listening to it on that road trip, and I was only like halfway through it when I got home, so that's, I guess it's a 10-hour road trip back and forth, but even when I got home, I couldn't stop listening to it. It's just so good. City of Brass gets a thumbs up from me. It's about a girl, she thinks she's a human, she kind of gets kidnapped and brought into this demon world, and it's just a whole lot of fun. Highly recommend it. I'm not really great at giving book descriptions, but it's fine. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend. Right now, I'm listening to The Kingdom of Copper, which is the sequel to that book, and it's not disappointing. I'm only on chapter 2, so I'm really excited about this one too, because right back into that world, 5 years later, very excited about it. But I did finish City of Brass with about a week before Kingdom of Copper even came out. So I did read a couple books in the middle, which kind of surprised me. When I was a teenager, a lot of people were reading, or a lot of girls, my friends, were reading Tithe by Holly Black, and I never really got into it. I didn't see the hype. They seemed like very short books, which they are, and I just never really picked them up because I was like, oh, it's just another fairy story. But a few months ago, I picked up The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and I read I put off reading it for a long time. It even still has the on sale sticker, $12.27 from Sam's Club. But I think I ended up getting this one on audiobook as well, because when stuff goes on sale on Audible, I just tend to use a credit if I have it, especially if it's a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 sale. I tend to go for it because it's a lot easier for me to listen to an audiobook and knit than carry around a book as well with my knitting. So I have a physical copy that I've never even opened. I did listen to this on the audiobook and immediately started The Wicked King, which is the sequel to this book, and they are both so good. Both so good that on Monday, because Kingdom of Copper came out on Tuesday, on Monday, I guess Sunday night and Monday, I read the entire first book of Tithe, which is also by Holly Black and takes place in the same universe. So I read 3 books in 1 week, really. I listened to 2 audiobooks, and then I read the ebook for Tithe, too. All in just a matter of a few days. And I really enjoyed it. I already bought the ebooks for the 2nd and 3rd in the Tithe series, and then 1 other Holly Black book. So I'm really excited to get more into her work, because it kind of went under my radar. I knew it was there when I was in high school, because a lot of her books came out from like 2006. Like while I was in high school, they were coming out. So I don't know why I wasn't reading them. I guess I was too obsessed with Twilight to read anything else. But these really show how much she has grown as an author, and I highly recommend them. So that's kind of what I've been reading lately. That's more reading than I normally do. So we'll see if I can keep this up. So that's that. Should I do a chatter section at the end of my episodes? I don't really have a lot of life stuff to talk about. I go to work, I come home, I knit. So there's not really a whole lot to talk about on that front. I did buy some stuff to start dyeing yarn, and I've had it sitting in my stash for a while. So I'm figuring out, if you have any like ideas for me, I want to start dyeing yarn as a hobby first. First and foremost, I want to see if I'm good at it. It seems like something I would like to do. I have to figure out if I'm good at doing it. But I am not finding the right space to dye yarn. So if you have any ideas, leave it in the comments, because I do, when I said I moved home a few years ago, I mean I moved into my parents' house. And my mom's a knitter, she gets it, she understands that I want to dye yarn, she just doesn't want me to do it in her kitchen. Totally understandable, because I'm a messy human. I'm a messy human, I can't keep the eggs in the pan when I'm frying them. She knows the dye is not edible, so we're gonna see. I really want to try it though. So if you have any ideas as to where I can set up shop, or if you dye yarn and you do it as a hobby and you don't do it in your kitchen, if you could let me know what you're doing, I'd really appreciate that. And I guess that's it. This has been the Read Your Knitting? What did I call it at the beginning? Oh my lord. I think I called it Read Your Knitting Podcast. I'm Sarah. I hope you enjoyed this.